Toby, where do you stand on it?
Yeah, I'm very much in favour of a referendum. I mean, it almost sounded as though Matthew was saying that because the policy is clearly the right policy, people shouldn't have a choice about whether to embrace it or not. It should be just imposed upon them because it's for their own good and for their children's good. I don't buy that argument. I think, of course, we shouldn't have referendums about everything, but I think where an issue affects everyone in a really profound, far-reaching way for decades to come, like whether or not we should be in the EU, then there should be a referendum about it. And, you know, one of the reasons fuel bills are going to be higher this winter, not the only reason, but one of the reasons is because of the net zero policy. There's a story in the Telegraph right now, I checked just before coming on air, saying that some rural homeowners could be forced to spend £13,000 on heat pumps because net zero rules will cause traditional heat systems to be banned. You know, there's going to be a ban on the sale of petrol and diesel-driven cars, new cars, from 2030. These are incredibly far-reaching changes that are going to affect
the job
all of us.
opportunities, so you can all get a better, well-paid job to help you pay you, whatever it was you just mentioned.
Yeah, well, so far those jobs haven't really materialised, and nothing like to the extent to compensate for the cost to the economy of pursuing this particular policy. And, you know, I don't think it's enough to say that it was in the manifesto of the Conservative Party in 2019. I mean, we'd already embraced net zero by then. It was already passed as an act of Parliament.
We have enough time to debate referendums, but not enough time to read the manifestos of the Labour Party and the Tory Party.
Well, the problem is, Matthew, that if it's one policy amongst many in a manifesto, I don't think and it doesn't get voted for by, you know, over 50% of the population, you can't then say, well, people have consented to paying £13,000 to replace
why not have a referendum on policing?
Boiler with a heat pump.
Sure, but why not have a referendum on policing? That affects us all. Why not have a referendum on how much we should be taxed? That affects us all. Why not have a referendum about how much exactly you should put into the NHS?
Why not?
Well, I think one of the reasons
we don't have the time for it. That's why we have MPs.
One of the reasons we should have a referendum on this issue and not some of those other issues is a point you made earlier, which is that all three main political parties agree on this policy. So there really isn't a choice at the ballot box about whether to pursue net zero or not, which means there should be a referendum about it because we can't express our views at the ballot box.
Even though only 44% of people in this YouGov poll, which, by the way, was sponsored by Car26, which I think is fair to say would disagree with me about almost everything on the environment, only 44% of people, as Michelle expressed her surprise already, actually want to have a referendum.
Nearly 30% said they weren't sure.
Yeah,
so
I think if you factor in the don't knows, then it's a majority.
You need to have, surely, if you're going to have a referendum, you at least have to have a majority of people wanting the referendum in the first place.
But I guess you would say to you the same about people who opposed a referendum over our membership of the EU. If you're so convinced that this is the right policy, then why not make that argument in the public square? Why run scared of a referendum?
If we were to have a referendum, and it's obviously out of my hands, I would continue to try to be invited on shows like GBNews to make my arguments as powerfully as I can. Toby, you care so much about education, rightly.
Yes.
You set up a school, right? Am I right?
Yes.
Wouldn't it be wonderful to live in a world where our children can breathe fresh air? And by the way, I'm not going to set myself up as some sort of Jesus figure on this. You could easily accuse me of being a hypocrite. I still drive my car. I still eat more red meat than I should. I do all the sorts of things that you two probably do that, in my view, we should do less of. I'm part of the problem. I'm not saying I'm holier than thou or I'm virtue signalling. I just think that the science suggests that if we drive fewer cars, if we drive cleaner cars, if we eat less meat, if we do all those things, partly because it's expensive. And I hope that it can be made less expensive.
It's not expensive.
As I say, I'm by no means perfect, and I'm part of the problem. Doesn't mean I can't see the intellectual arguments for doing it.
And let me just I just want to pick up this point about toxicity, because you referenced at the point, your first response, you said, oh, we don't need more of this toxic debate. I would argue, actually, the only reason it was toxic is because people were not able to accept the result and the response.
It was toxic before.
So what happened?
Before the result.
Was it really?
I thought you said, you know, if you believe in education, why are you in favour of this referendum? It's a slightly bizarre argument, but one of the reasons I'd like there to be a referendum on the net zero issue is because I do believe in education, and I think a public debate in which people like you and I thrashed it out on GB News would be educational.